Minnie asks whether the Hope Valley Choir can try out for a final spot in a Salt Lake City Choir Festival after Tom Thornton comes to Hope Valley and announces that he is now employed by music publisher G.B. Sweeney. The choir wins the festival's last spot, and each member pays their own $5 to enter. Given Tom's past, Elizabeth is understandably wary, but she gives him the benefit of the doubt. But she senses something is up when Tom abruptly cancels the choir practice. There won't be a trip to Salt Lake City for anyone, a gloomy Tom says at the train station, claiming that Sweeney made off with all the money Tom provided him. On When Calls the Heart Season 11 Episode 7, Tom Thornton made a double visit, first to Elizabeth, then to his brother Jack's grave. A few women ambushed him, and though he hadn't planned to scout the Hope Valley chorus for an upcoming festival, it was difficult to turn them down. Tom, the younger brother, found it difficult to come back and learn about Jack's legendary status and that many of these individuals still recalled his youthful mistakes. Tom wanted to establish himself in his new role and demonstrate that he could be successful working for a well-known company like G.B. Sweeney. Elizabeth had always wanted to believe in Tom, but she never brought it up since she was a little afraid of leading the choir into one of his schemes. But two enthusiastic adolescents did, and they gave Minnie the notion. It was hilarious how Minnie, Florence, and Molly caught Tom off guard during his lunch with Faith. There was no time for him to refuse. It took some convincing to get the other members of the choir to agree, since they all felt that they needed more time to practice. However, the Canfields' persuasiveness won them over in the end. The choir swiftly entered and had a far better sound than in When Calls the Heart Season 10 Episode 8. People became skeptical when Tom revealed the admission price was $65, or $5 per person, especially considering the $5 was a substantial sum of money in the 1920s. Tom's credibility suffered since he failed to disclose a cost in advance. Nathan and like people wouldn't just give money to someone without asking any questions. Regretfully, Tom thought everything was okay, but G.B. Sweeney took advantage of everyone, and his past made Tom a simple mark. He transformed as a result of Elizabeth and Nathan agreeing to assist him and him not running. Tom might bring something special to Hope Valley. Jack and Elizabeth need their families to be nearby, and it would help him and Faith reconnect. Since Carson departed the town at the end of When Calls the Heart Season 8, Faith has not dated anyone, and she has recently expressed her dissatisfaction with her lack of direction. Although the two are cute and raising Lily has helped, no one is sure how long Lily will stay with Faith. Faith doesn't want to become overly involved since she fears losing the child, as seen by the fact that she introduces Tom to Lily without knowing how to refer to Lily. Faith and Lily were won over by Tom, and he seemed to get along well with kids, which may be advantageous for them if things got serious. It was a great gesture to keep Jack's birthday in mind. Elizabeth was able to honor her late spouse and acknowledge that her grief for him isn't as intense. He's Jack's father, thus he'll always be needed. But at last, she and Nathan talked about how he's no longer under Jack's shadow, and that's progress. Although they didn't have many romantic moments, they collaborated to achieve their shared objective. The most popular detective teen was back in action. Rosemary and Bill were determined to disprove the theory that Montague forced Clayton Pike to confess and that Pike was not guilty. Rosemary also discovered her gold mine, an interview with his mother, with whom she immediately wanted to speak. Despite Rosemary's suspicions that Miss Pike was biased, Nathan provided her with her information. Considering that Miss Pike came to Hope Valley right before Rosemary and Bill left for Union City, she was just as forgetful as he said. Rosemary and Mrs. Pike got along so well that it almost felt like Bill wasn't needed. Rosemary's ally status impressed Mrs. Pike, who was pleased that a woman was in charge of this probe. Her hip condition may have been a convenient tale to shield her son, but Montague's payment for her operation seems to have forced Clayton to confess, and the flowers he brought served as a reminder of that. They still required proof, though, as this was only circumstantial evidence. It seems that this is not the end of the investigation, and they need to talk to Clayton Pike. Rosemary and Bill made an effort to assist Lucas, but Lucas dug himself a bigger hole and began dragging his right-hand men and buddies, Henry and Lee, down with him. All that mattered to Edwin was the votes. His intentions were not to serve Lucas's best interests. Given that he was pushing for working with Montague, I think he may even be doing so. Lucas had always wanted to improve Hope Valley for the coming generation, but he was prevented from doing so by someone who was disseminating false information about him. Lucas was also unsuccessful in his attempt to get bids for the resort from Lee, despite his hopes. When Lucas started believing that he, Lee, or Henry, three locals, should bid on the resort, he was completely frantic. However, as Lee pointed out, they were all in conflict of interest. Chris McNally recently alluded to some unethical decisions Lucas has to live with. Henry was uncomfortable with the concept of Lucas placing a bid with the government emergency funds, but Lucas struggled with it. Until the Benson Hills Oil Company filed for bankruptcy, Lucas declined to collaborate with Montague. Lucas was against families fighting to make ends meet. Is he spying on him for information, or will he cooperate with him? The cast still feels bloated, even though the previous few episodes have improved by introducing more community storylines and fostering Elizabeth and Nathan's connection. A few weeks may pass between episodes covering certain topics, while only a few minutes are allotted to others each time. The show makes an effort to win over every fan, but it fails to do so.